Before we get to your scheduled video, please remember that likes and comments tell YouTube to promote our work to other people, and subscribing to the channel tells you when something new drops. You can also head to the link tree in the description to peruse my books, join us on Discord, or support us on Patreon. You can get episodes of Journey of Wrestling and Violent Profiles early, as well as a load of other treats. Even just $1 a month earns you a name drop for being cool. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the show.
Greetings and salutations, fellow dancing white people, as I, Eric J. Chucky, joined as always by the boy.
Hey!
And even if you're not dancing or a white person, we're happy to have you here because this is the Two Nerds Podcast. Today we're talking about bread.
I like bread.
This is, well, hold on a second. Before we do any of this crap, we need to talk about who's cool. That's going to be a guy from Ohio, Rob, Passion Killer 711, Strucci KTL, On the Tip of Your Tongue, and DG, where kids want to be. Every time. I'm suffering cat aggro if something happens. Yeah, this was a joke. It was, I was asking where bread fell. Thank you for your input. You weren't there. On a scale of, you know, whatever. And I mentioned to my mother, who I was talking to, that we did podcasts sometimes because we use the filthy language. We say the fuck words, and my mom doesn't care to hear that, and that's okay. So she doesn't watch the show. But, I mentioned we do podcasts like these, and realized that one on bread would be really good. Because now maybe I'm misremembering this, but you like bread, right?
I love bread so much, you guys. You don't understand.
Why don't you give us a little history on your love for bread?
So, if the universe were right and just, I would have been born as a peasant in medieval France. I love bread and cheese so much. So, there's an ongoing joke amongst our friend group, personally, that each one of us has a thing without which a meal is incomplete. Every meal they eat, if it doesn't have this one thing, they feel like it's not actually a real meal. Mine is bread. If I don't have bread in my meal somewhere, it doesn't really feel like I've eaten. It feels like I've snacked.
We speculate that mine is meat, but I actually am not sure about that. I think it might be a texture thing. One of the cats is being a real fussy girl. So today. Here's the issue. I just took a shower, and she is expecting post-shower very warm dad cuddles. And she's very tsundere, so she's definitely not trying to get my attention. Baka. Yeah. So yeah, that's gonna be a thing. It's alright. We like her. Everybody loves cats. Hey, comment, and maybe I'll share a picture of the cat sometime. She's lovely. But, yeah, without further ado, let's get to bread. Just, you know, you've met tier lists before. How do you feel about the humble bagel?
I think the bagel is a niche bread. It's not your proletarian bread. It's a bread for special occasions, at least in modern times in America. And I love it. I love the you're hearing that a lot. I like the sturdier outer texture that boiling the bread gives it. Mm-hmm. And the slight alkali nature of the solution you use to do that. And from there, however, a lot of what makes a bagel good is about toppings more than the bread itself. So, I don't know that it's S tier. I feel like it's a solid A tier, though. Like, it's hard to beat a good bagel.
I think you have a point there. I was assuming bagel would go into S tier because they're very good. For all the reasons you described, but in my dumb peasant words instead of your fancy cooking man words. But I don't know that I'd ever just eat a naked-ass bagel.
See, that's what an S-tier bread... An S-tier bread for me is maybe some butter.
Yeah.
And even then...
Well, I'd eat a buttered bagel.
Some butter? You need something else. Some salt, some pepper.
I guess I would eat like an everything bagel with some butter. So.
But an everything bagel has toppings on it. They're just on the outside.
Yeah.
So that's A tier.
I'll say A tier.
It's still a very good bread, but it's more of a food platform than a food itself in the grand world of breads.
I was kind of worried that this podcast wasn't going to have enough material, and my guy just filled a minute on a bagel.
You have no idea how much I like bread.
I'm so happy right now. This is beautiful. Have you ever, all the memes about tapping into your friend's special interest? I very rarely do that, and now I'm just getting to watch it unfold, and I'm living my best life. So the next category is Hawaiian rolls, a very perennial sweet bread, lovely shape, very fluffy.
A Hawaiian roll is excellent as a side. A Hawaiian roll is a wonderful thing to have at like a savory dinner. If you have like a Thanksgiving or other holiday type feast, a big plate of Hawaiian rolls is just an excellent addition to that. By themselves, they can be a little stodgy. But a good Hawaiian roll with just some butter can really take you a long way. For me personally, they're going to be like an A tier, B tier bread because they don't generally eat them by themselves, but I don't know that that's on the Hawaiian roll.
No, that's on you, man. I eat them by themselves. Well, back when I ate bread regularly, I eat them by themselves all the time. Again, maybe with a bit of butter. They're deliciously fluffy. They are the apex of terrifying American bread to a European.
Yeah, they're cake.
Yeah, they're basically cake.
All right, I want to get this out of the way early. To all the European bread people, to the French peasants who I, if the world was just, would be, I am still American. I'm not going to dock points for being sweet. I'm sorry, I'm just not.
Well, they make these breads in foreign lands. They just make them with less sugar. So that's like assuming all of these breads are bad. They're all burnt.
I'm not assuming the absolute best version I've had, and I'm not assuming the worst version. I am assuming a standard operating unit of each individual bread.
Well, I don't want to...
No. If you're Beer King for S tier for a Hawaiian roll, I'm absolutely not going to fault that.
Here's the situation. I don't want to fight you about bread. Period.
No, I'm not. I'm absolutely... That is fine.
I'll die. And I'm sure I will have disagreements with you later when you're like, this brick with bread written on the side, perfect. Gorgeous. Never seen a better bread.
Then how about A tier?
I'm going to say King of A tier.
Yeah,
or King's Hawaiian.
King's Hawaiian, there you go.
That's delightful.
It's a wonderful brand.
Wow, we even spent longer on that bread. Oatmeal bread. I haven't had a lot of oatmeal bread in my time.
I'm actually not a huge fan of oatmeal bread.
Yeah, it's like wheat bread, but more complicated.
So, a good whole grain wheat is excellent. It's for different things than like a white bread or like a baguette, but a whole grain wheat is quite good. Oatmeal bread is kind of just pretentious wheat bread. At least the ones I've had. And so I can't in good conscience give it above B tier.
So here's me also kind of, giving support to our placement of the bagel. When you get a bread where its gimmick is there's shit on top of it, it doesn't hold a candle to the bagel where the shit is all over the one side of it.
Yeah, basically.
Like that's what 2, maybe 3 bites if you got a tiny mouth of your bread is going to be an elevated experience.
And then
Fuck off.
Then you got effectively a muffin stump, but worse.
Yeah. You said B or C tier?
I can't give it above B tier. If you want B tier, that's fine.
No,
I would natively give this C tier.
I would agree with you on C
now,
tier.
There's not going to be many low tier breads.
There's nothing wrong with oatmeal bread, but it's almost never going to be my first choice.
Yeah, basically.
Rye bread.
Rye bread. Rye bread's a divisive one because rye bread it has a very different flavor profile from a lot of breads Americans are going to generally eat unless they are from an area where rye bread is popular, and that's very regional. I think rye bread is best utilized as like a sandwich delivery device. Rye bread by itself is a little... God, what would you say? Bitter?
Yeah, bitter's probably the best way to put it. It's not bad.
No, I like a rye sandwich. But again,
well, and this is the kind of bread they serve at the Outback Steakhouse, is it not?
Yes, that's like a dark brown rye.
It's a very dark rye, and that's fine. But I don't. It's so. The butter helps, but its flavor profile is so bitter, I guess.
This is as a niche bread. If this were my tier list and not our tier list, I would put it in A or B, because much like the Outback Steakhouse is probably the best example you would have. A good warm rye bread with some butter is a great eating experience. But this is our tier list, and I know that flavor profile is not super popular.
It's a sometimes food, and I don't think I like the kind of sandwich fillings
that go well with this.
Yes, absolutely. Your corned beefs.
Because, like, not all sandwich fillings go well with this.
No.
Roast beef, corned beef. Chicken is not really a good shout with rye bread.
I feel like the flavor of the rye bread would overwhelm the chicken.
It's a little too bland to stand up. You need something with a lot of flavor, a lot of, like, curing salts or other, like, barbecue brisket can be great with rye bread.
I would guess even like a pickle relish or something that has like a lot of...
It needs to be strong enough to fight the bread.
Yeah, to marry the bread, to elevate the bread. They both should ideally lift each other up, and I just don't consume food like that.
Now, having said that, that means by itself the bread has the same problem the bagels do, and if being a topping delivery device is what keeps bagel out of S tier, then rye bread's not as good as a bagel. If you just eat a straight up slice of rye bread and a straight up bagel, one of those is a lot better in experience. So,
well, this is about compromise. It's our list.
Where would you put it natively?
Natively, I would maybe put it into a D. I think oatmeal bread at least doesn't taste like much.
Whereas rye bread can be actively unpleasant.
It's got a complicated flavor, but I'm fine with putting it into C. We kind of agreed on that being an okay point.
Yeah, that's fine by me.
Would you say it's better than oatmeal bread?
No.
Okay. All right. Brioche.
Brioche.
I love a brioche.
Now, I feel like this is the first solid S tier.
You know what? If you feel that way, I feel that way. I think Hawaiian rolls are like a better version of brioche, but only slightly.
And for me, brioche is the slightly better version because there's a more open crumb usually, and that leads to be able to like that leads to a better mouth experience, and it absorbs butter better is the easiest way to explain it.
Sure. Go speak to that, my guy. Go off on brioche.
So it has all the same positive qualities as Hawaiian bread. It's mildly sweet. That'll vary depending on regionality. Again, European's going to be a lot less sweet. And the more open crumb structure as compared to like a Hawaiian roll allows it just makes it airier and lighter and more pleasant to bite into. Whereas, like I said before, Hawaiian roll by itself can be a little stodgy, a little dense.
I've never met a dense brioche.
No, that's why I think brioche is the first solid S tier bread on this list.
Thank you for supplying all that. You're going to say bread words way better than I will.
I'm also going to say the word bread about 4 billion times.
Oh, get a counter, guys. Count how many times we say bread.
Don't make it a drinking game, you'll die.
No, don't do that. Maybe a drinking water game.
Yeah, hydrate.
Yeah. Okay. Whole wheat bread, I feel, is the alternative standard to white, right? It's the basic bread here in the old US of A. It's reliable. It pairs well. Oh, God, I wanted to say about brioche. Takes a cheese.
Takes a cheese, does brioche.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, whole wheat bread. I think it goes better with sweet things. I think the natural...
That's what I mentioned earlier. A whole wheat bread is a different use case. It has those earthier flavors that pair better with sweet things.
Yeah.
Whereas like a white bread, especially an American white bread, is so sweet already that it just kind of becomes candy-like. If you pair it with like peanut butter and jelly on whole wheat is kind of a controversial statement in America. Peanut butter and jelly on whole wheat is superior to peanut butter and jelly on white bread.
I will agree unconditionally. It's fantastic. It just the flavor profile is just so superior. And I mean, we'll get to white bread. I have thoughts on white bread.
We're gonna fight about white bread.
But okay, so all that being said, where would you place whole wheat?
It doesn't really rise to the amazing heights of like an S tier, but I'd say that's a solid B, maybe a low A, but B feels more natural.
I think B's probably correct. In a world where rye bread is C tier, I think whole wheat is a solid B. How do we feel about banana bread?
Banana bread is I think that's the first proper dessert bread on here.
I believe so, my friend.
This is a whole different category of food for me. There's a lot of dessert breads they're a whole different thing.
Banana bread is almost cake. Like, literally.
It is just cake.
Yeah, it's a big fucking muffin.
What stops it from being cake is that we called it bread first. It is cake. I've looked at the ingredients list and the ratios. That shit's cake. It's good cake, but that's not bread. It is called bread. That is a whip spider. That is not a real spider.
You know, I'm looking here, and but for a couple of examples, I'm not really seeing a lot of entries for dessert breads.
No,
So
I think
would like to.
we can give the banana bread its due. I don't think we need to make a separate tier or anything.
No, and I would like to fold in, if I could. This is what I'm barracking for here. Other delicious dessert breads like a zucchini bread.
Yeah, all those breads that are muffin, cake adjacent, soft, sweet, still a little more robust flavor-wise than your standard cake, which can be a little flat.
Toothsome.
Toothsome, excellent use of that word.
Thank you. I learned it from the internet.
I think all of those are quite good, but they're not amazing breads. They serve a different culinary purpose. I would never make a sandwich with banana bread unless the sandwich was like bananas and jelly. It's not, I wouldn't put like 2 slices of roast beef and a Munster cheese on a banana bread. That might get you arrested.
Well, now I kind of want to try that.
No, it'd be bad.
Not roast beef and Munster.
I swear to you,
but maybe a Havarti with some very plain chicken.
I swear to you, it would be bad. This does not work. I do not do this.
I shake hands with the devil on a regular basis, my friend.
You live your life.
Anyway, where would we place this?
I'd say like I gotta give it A tier.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I was thinking just above bagel because while the bagel is not something you'd ever eat without topping, as you said, the banana bread you'd never want to eat it with topping, and that suggests that it and other dessert breads are fine on their own.
Yeah, but no dessert bread, if made well, needs toppings.
All right, now here's another complicated one because we have but one entry for cornbread, and there are two very distinct recipes for cornbread in America itself.
That's beyond regionality. Being as general as possible, there are 2 very different kinds of cornbread. One is good, one is bad.
What are your thoughts on which is which?
I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you, viewer. You figure that out on your own.
One is the more savory cornbread. I find that cornbread to be a bit bland. Not bad, just bland. It's great for a soup, a chili, a stew, something hearty to soak up some of that extra, like a nice northern bean soup as well, to soak up that extra juice.
A savory cornbread is an excellent thickener.
Sure.
If it's broken up and put into like something that is good, it'll serve to absorb those flavors and like mellow them out a little, because it has its own sort of very bland flavor, and it'll thicken that thing and make it heartier.
I think one can also treat cornbread in soup like roast beef and au jus and just do the dip.
Like a grilled cheese sandwich and tomato soup.
I've heard some people do that, yes.
I agree, totally. That's not what I would do, because, this is spoilers, I am actually going to tell you, most of the time the savory cornbread is incredibly mealy and like not pleasant to eat by itself.
I was going to say that if the banana bread is toothsome, this is teeth all. It's just chewy and falls apart into sand immediately, and it still is somehow chewy as sand.
Like, sweet cornbread is just, it is on the other side of banana bread. It's not sweet enough to be a dessert bread, but it is sweeter than most of the other breads on this list. I would still qualify it as bread, and I think it's usually the better one. Now, it is worse with the savory dishes.
Your mileage may vary.
Oh, of course, this is all opinion-based.
Yeah.
But it is better by itself. So I'm going to be rating the sweet cornbread because it is better by itself, so it's the one that is I'm rating as its own thing.
I am going to tap into some ancient wisdom and say that there is nothing wrong with cornbread.
That's very true.
Where would you like to place cornbread?
Oh, cornbread's a solid C.
Solid C. I think I'd put it above oatmeal just from the value of the sweet cornbread alone.
Yes.
I'd also, if we're allowed, like to elevate that a little bit by saying that a corn pudding
Excellent.
qualifies as cornbread. It's basically just cornbread that isn't done.
You didn't finish it.
You fucked off halfway through this cornbread, and we're like, good enough.
I can eat it. And turns out you can.
Yeah, and it's really tasty. Moving on to cinnamon bread, which I would not qualify as a dessert bread.
Now it's on thin fucking ice.
Sure, it's got beautiful cinnamon swirls like some sort of breakfast cereal commercial, but it's not. If you just eat a piece of cinnamon bread, especially compared to most American breads, it's not that sweet.
It is on thin ice, but it's not a dessert bread. It is a breakfast sandwich bread.
I think breakfast sandwich is a good place to think about cinnamon bread. And I notice here we've got cinnamon bread's cousin. Let's go ahead and rate these together. The cinnamon raisin bread.
Those are the same.
One's just got raisins in it.
I have no detectable difference in opinion between those two things.
There are fewer things I would eat with the cinnamon raisin bread than with the cinnamon bread.
It's a little sweeter.
Yeah. Well, and those raisins complicate things because they don't do, to their credit, what the oatmeal bread does and just be sprinkled on top.
No, that's all raisin.
There throughout. But I don't necessarily want to run into a raisin while I'm eating a sandwich.
Yeah, like especially not a sandwich with like eggs in it.
Sure, that
weird.
Just adds some extra unnecessary complication to my sandwich.
But yeah, I think rating them together is absolutely fine.
Where would you place these breads? You're kind of my Sherpa on this one.
Yeah.
I thought I muted my phone. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
For those of you who have Final Fantasy VI noises as your phone's notifications, that was my phone, not yours. Comment if you do.
Yeah,
also,
please. I've never met anyone else who does. Don't actually like them that much. They sit in a unfortunate worst of both worlds for me. They're not sweet enough to be a proper dessert bread, and they're slightly too sweet to be good with other stuff.
So, not too long ago, you recommended to me cream cheese and pepperoni.
Yeah.
As a topping for a bagel or what have you. And that sounded good on its face. But when I tried it, the pepperoni doesn't have enough bite to matter. So it was like I was adding extra stuff to my food that didn't do anything. And for me, a cinnamon raisin bread or cinnamon bread doesn't add enough to bread to really do anything. I don't feel like my experience is enhanced other than aesthetically by eating the bread.
These might be the first D tiers.
Yeah, only because they failed to deliver on their promise.
It's tight competition here. I do love bread. I don't hate either of these. I will absolutely smash an entire loaf of either of these.
No, they're lovely. It's just a very subtle flavor, and if you're going to bother telling me you put cinnamon in this bread,
I want to taste cinnamon.
it better be cinnamon up front. I better get hit in the face with cinnamon.
And I don't.
And I've never have.
About the only time I've ever enjoyed cinnamon or cinnamon raisin bread is like with a warm cream cheese as a breakfast.
Sure.
But that's because of the warm cream cheese. If I'm being real, that is not because of the bread.
So that takes us to la croissant.
We're going to fight.
La cuisson.
The proper croissant. I'm just going to use the American. I'm an American. I'm going to say it in American.
I'm like
He's mocking the
10% French, and I'm still...
But a proper croissant, undisputable S tier.
Okay, so here's the trigger. Here's the problem. Okay? And prepare your pitchforks. I don't like flaky pastry.
He's a demon. He's a demon who lives in human skin.
It's food with an entire cleanup phase after every bite. It just explodes into fragments like bread confetti, which I know sounds like a dream to you.
I'm over here like, yeah, it does.
And I'm just messy and I'm upset. The croissant itself is fine. It's fine. They're lovely.
Buttery, delicious. Requires nothing else.
I say a
warm croissant requires no toppings. It requires no additions. It requires no subtractions. You can just eat it, and it's an amazing experience.
I submit that unlike all other bread, it does in fact require something, and that's a cleanup crew.
Oh.
Were this my own list, I would probably put the croissant in C tier, maybe
Blasphemy.
B. But it is our list, so would you be willing to compromise on an A?
Absolutely.
Okay, where would you like to put it in A?
Oh, these are all so close together for me in A tier that wherever you'd like is fine.
I'm going to close my eyes, and it's going to drop where it drops. After the band... I don't think that's true. I'll put it up to
Even in his hearty nose.
Look, it's got a good flavor. If I could, I tell you what, if you made a bunch of mini croissants,
Oh my
and I
God.
could just pop them in and
They
it's
make those?
done.
They're good.
Who is they? They're not at my house.
That's true. I don't make croissants. They're too hard.
Yeah, it's a lot of
I
effort.
hate laminating butter.
Biscuits, and these are the American biscuits. These are the Grand's biscuits, the Pillsbury biscuits, the biscuits and gravy biscuits. How do you feel about biscuits?
Biscuits are what cornbread wants to be when it grows up to me. I recognize they're very different flavors, but they have the same use case, and biscuits are better. I love biscuits. A good warm biscuit with butter. Mwah.
You know what you can't do with cornbread is put jam and butter on it.
Biscuits are so versatile. They can be sweet, they can be savory. You change nothing about the biscuit, and it matches perfectly with a little jam. It matches perfectly with like a sausage patty. It's an incredibly versatile breakfast food, filling, soft, delicious, flaky, buttery. S tier.
I have to agree. I wouldn't necessarily just eat a biscuit, and I've had some bad biscuits in my time.
You know what? That is fair. A biscuit by itself can be dry, so maybe 8 tier.
But it is so extremely utilitarian. There are things I wouldn't want to eat with a brioche. I can't imagine any topping I wouldn't want to put on a biscuit.
Like a good biscuit, like a
Yeah, like a decent biscuit even.
but like a biscuit by itself can be dry. That is a good counterpoint.
It is, but like otherwise, I think versatility. I'm willing to take S tier.
Oh,
We can move it down later if we decide that it's
if
wrong.
upon reflection that seems wrong.
Now, I don't understand yeast bread. How is that different from a lot of the other kinds of bread on this list?
I'm gonna be honest. It's not really.
Let me see what else is on here. Oh, no, there is a zucchini bread. I stand corrected.
Oh, well, put that with banana bread.
Just put her with banana bread.
Actually,
Go
put
up
it
there.
slightly above.
My bread brother. Is this like a sourdough? Do we have a sourdough?
It doesn't look like a sourdough, but these pictures are
And
very small.
There's not a Oh, there's sourdough, yeah. Wow, I wonder what that is. You know what? Let's rate him last.
Yeah, because I'm not entirely.
We covered the biscuit. We're
Like-
moving on to the English muffin.
I've eaten something that people call yeast bread. It just tastes like bread. It's a little. It's gonna sound. It's a tautology. It's a little yeastier. It's a little more funky, but it's just bread. Anyway, what was next?
English muffin.
English
The
muffin.
cousin of the biscuit.
Yeah, it's very much the same use case as a biscuit, and not as good.
Do you think top of B tier?
I think top of it.
Top of B tier. I think they're about as
It's not complex. It's just not. It's not quite as good as a biscuit.
they're as useful as a bagel, but less interesting.
Now it's much easier to have a good English muffin than it is a good biscuit because it's easy to fuck up a biscuit. But it's if we're dealing with at least decent executions on both, the biscuit wins.
Potato bread.
Potato bread again. This is with the yeast bread and the various. I swear to you, it's just bread. It's not that different. It does have a slightly different flavor, but it's not enough to really care about.
I will say this for potato bread. I don't know that I see Italian bread on here either. And I don't mean like a loaf of Italian bread. Interesting. Potato bread doesn't screw up on me often. Even buying it like prepackaged, you know, from a
Sliced,
major company,
American.
sliced, yeah.
It's a sturdy bread.
It's a sturdy
It's got
bread.
a lot of shelf stability.
It's got more versatility than your average bread.
Okay, so the difference between a potato bread and a standard American white bread, because these are both very much riffs on a standard American white bread,
Sure.
is that a potato bread has a little bit more rounded flavor. It's a little sturdier, like physically usually a little sturdier. And it's a little bit more, I hate to use the word again, but toothsome. It's a little bit thicker.
I would agree. I was going to say that. It takes a soup better.
Yeah.
And a gravy for that matter.
It's a structural difference
Yes.
because of the type of starch used.
I also feel like it's much less frequently sweet, much less strongly sweet.
Yes, it can even have as much sugar and just be less sweet because of how the flavor ends up working out. I would rate yeast bread and potato bread about the same, a solid B tier, nothing to write home about. Not amazing, but never gonna steer you wrong.
Okay. I'm going to put yeast bread at the bottom of B tier
That's fine.
because it's indiscernible, unplumbable. What are you?
That's fair. If you haven't had it, it's not. I swear to you, it's not different enough to care.
I have a question mark here because we have pita bread on this list, but also flatbread and also naan. And
They are all different.
okay, all right. Let me speak to me.
So a flatbread, a pita bread, and a naan. Why don't we just knock all of these out together?
That sounds great.
So we'll start with a naan. A naan is a very heavily seasoned and herbed bread. Naan has like flavor in it.
Oh, okay.
It is. They're all basically in the same class of unhelpfully flatbreads. Pita bread is a little thicker. It has a lot more air pockets in it. It's not leavened, but it has like a lot more space inside the bread. A very open.
Yeah,
front.
very airy. Okay, I understand what you're saying.
And a flatbread is kind of the overarching like umbrella for all the other unleavened breads you might see.
Okay.
Like there's a thing here that I'm going to be mad about when we get to the end of this list because I've noticed there's something missing and I'm annoyed about it. But I would say like a flatbread by itself, that is 100% like a topping delivery device. Like a C tier ass topping delivery device. They're
Okay.
not bad, but do you really ever eat flatbread by itself? Do you just tear off a hunk of flatbread and eat it? I do, but I'm a mutant.
See, I do that with naan.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Naan is at least one tier above, and so is pita bread because they bring something to the party. Naan brings a lot of flavor and a lot of, like...
I think the English muffin is going to be Lucky Pierre between the other flatbreads there. If that's all
Perfect.
right.
And the pita brings that extra airiness. But what's next?
Next, we have a flour tortilla.
Funnily enough, these are very different than a flatbread. So I am...
Oh, absolutely. I would agree.
A tortilla is... I think it's probably... and like structurally in terms of how it's used, the same as a biscuit. But I'm a mutant. Most people don't think tortillas go with sweet stuff.
Most American people.
Yeah.
If you are from at all Hispanic area or know a lot about the culture, you know about sopapillas, you know about...
I grew up eating, for a brief portion of my life, a lot of Mexican food.
Yeah.
I had a friend whose mother was a wizard and would produce amazing delights with nothing. So I was inculcated early into the, no, tortillas are for everything.
I don't know that I would, in my regular life, make something sweet out of a tortilla, but that's just because the quality of the tortillas I get aren't very good.
You can eat a decent tortilla.
Yeah.
Whereas savory is a much easier fit for the tortilla, especially to an American palate. But it's just incredibly versatile. It is a little bland by itself.
Yeah. I was going to suggest maybe below the bagel.
Okay, yeah, I'm for with that.
Now, there's no corn tortilla on here. I would put that a little lower. I don't really care as much for corn tortillas.
It's the same thing as cornbread. The flavor, I love corn, but the flavor of corn in bread form can be very unpleasant.
If you fry a corn tortilla and make it a taco or a nacho chip, that's great. But
Most
if just...
things are better if you fry them. That's cheating.
But it's like... That's a very common delivery method is the only reason I bring it up. You didn't get a lot of fried flour tortillas.
No, I don't think they take well to it.
I don't imagine.
I think they just... No, I've done this. They just get very hard and crunchy without being crispy.
Yeah. So that's fine, but I would solidly place a corn tortilla in B or C. Sourdough bread we finally arrived at. I think sourdough bread's pretty good.
Sourdough bread is really good. Sourdough bread is, I think, probably not peak sandwich bread, but it's hard to go wrong with it as a sandwich bread.
I like, as much as I don't like sour creams like a gloopy topping, I like the sour cream flavor in sourdough bread. The very...
The tanginess.
Yeah.
The as I said earlier, the funk that happens with that like yeasted starter. Yeah, sourdough's great. It is not a neutral bread, and that's actually to its benefit because it brings its own flavor to things.
Yeah.
I struggle to rate it.
I hesitate to put it above naan.
No, I don't think I would either.
Because I don't think I'd just eat some sourdough bread.
So I think probably B tier, probably below the pita bread,
Below the pita bread.
but above the other two
Yeah,
replaceable
I think I can
bread
agree with
units.
garlic bread, which is cheating.
Yeah, you're just cheating. That's just, I mean, it's obviously S tier, but hey, rude.
Yeah. You know what? I'm actually going to dock it because it's cheating. That's like saying, hey, pizza, is that your favorite bread?
Yeah, of course. Delicious bread, and then I added delicious butter and garlic. Oh, it's better. No shit.
Maybe a little bit of cheese. Maybe you get away with that.
Maybe a little cheese, maybe a little salt, maybe a little something, maybe a little paprika.
So do I just put the French bread in S tier and not fight you?
So this is actually what I wanted to bitch about. There is no baguette on here. French bread is a different thing.
You're right. You're absolutely right. You are correct, sir.
I am absurdly upset that the bread tier list doesn't have baguette on it.
Where would you put French bread and baguettes separately? And then we'll decide where to put the French bread based on
I am using that square as baguette.
Oh, okay.
As what the French call bread, which is baguette. There's a different thing Americans make called French bread, which is the fucking devil.
Which I believe the French word for is pain.
That's a good joke.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, full disclosure, in a vacuum, American-style French bread is fine. It is a solid upper C, lower B, perfectly standard bread. But if I buy something that's labeled a baguette, and you have put a French bread in there, an American-style French bread, I'm actually fully upset. Because it doesn't have any of the defining qualities that make the baguette, for me, the king of bread.
I can't agree with you on baguettes. Baguettes are the only kind of bread that I, as an adult, have the childhood crust problem with.
Whereas for me, the crust is the life. It is the soul of the bread.
I like a baguette with some soup. That's not bad. I like the crust because it's something softens it a bit. But on its own, I just don't rock this. But, like, speak with your heart here. You would put baguette in S tier, right?
I would put baguette firmly at the top of S tier.
Where would you put
it? A good baguette, an effectively neutral baguette, a functional baguette is perfect bread. The inside is soft and delicious. The outside is crunchy and sturdy. It can go with so many things. It can go with sweet things, savory things. It can go with soups. It can be turned into other things like, say, garlic bread very easily. A baguette is perfect. A baguette is, properly created, the best fucking bread and nearly the best food.
Where would you put French bread?
As the amalgam of the two,
Where would you put French bread?
American-style French bread,
Yes.
B, maybe C.
Okay.
In a vacuum, if I know what I'm buying and I get that, that's how I feel.
Okay. So, I'm being generous here because I would put a baguette in D. But I would put also French bread in B. I'm going to say maybe we put this somewhere in A. Does that sound okay to you?
I think bottom of A is naturally where the amalgam of the two belongs.
Spiritually, there is a baguette here and a little picture of me dead beside the baguette, stabbed with a baguette. That's a lie. He would never waste a baguette.
I would never waste a baguette on stabbing someone. I could have eaten that.
Breadsticks, I'm going to suggest we plop into C tier. Hot middle of C tier.
They're too variable.
They are. Because you have on the high end the Fazoli's breadsticks.
Which are garlic bread.
Or the Little Caesars Crazy Bread.
Which are doughy garlic bread.
And then on the other end you have like the Pizza Hut garlic bread, which is like the worst part of a baguette.
Yeah, which is just not pleasant.
No. So
C tier.
variable.
Mechanically middle of C tier because they're just too variable.
I'm going to say bottom of D for pumpernickel. I don't hate it.
Oh, I'm comfortable putting it in F, actually.
You think? I don't...
Pumpernickel bread is fully bad.
All right, but if the story about the guy making bread for his horse is true, does that not elevate it into
That's
D?
fair. That's fair. You know what? Because of its amazing backstory, it gets points.
Whether that's true or not,
I don't give a shit
it's
if
an
it's true.
uplifting
It's
backstory.
not good.
It's debated. Pretzel bread.
Pretzel bread is, I think, your baguette.
Oh, hell yeah, I love a pretzel bread.
It has the same qualities. It has a sturdier outside crust, much like a bagel, for the same reasons. And it has that softer inner crust, but the outside crust is a little more forgiving. And the inner crust is a little more, is a little denser. It's a little less light and airy, like the inside of a good baguette.
If the pretzel bread had been created in the late 2010s, they would have called it a bragel.
Yeah, and I like it as well. I think this is a solid contender for high A tier, but for reasons we've already explained a bunch for other breads, so I don't know about going on about it at length.
Sure, that's fine. Well, as we go on, I would almost even put it into S tier, but I accept above the Hawaiian roll.
You know what? I'm not honestly sure I disagree with that, except that I wouldn't eat it by itself.
I would need to dip it in some cheese or something.
Yeah,
that's fair. All right, a whole grain bread, which is a denser wheat.
Yeah, that's wheat plus, and thus it has fewer use cases, but it is better by itself.
I'm just gonna put it next to the whole wheat.
Yeah,
is that fine?
That's fine.
These are interchangeable.
Time for the other fight. It's white bread time. Now, having heard me go on at length about bread like a snooty asshole for the last, let's see here, fully 40 minutes, which one of us loves white bread, and one of us fucking hates it? Who do you think is which do you think is which?
Hit pause. Vote in the comments.
How do you feel about white bread?
I loathe white bread. It is. It's. I'd almost rather just put meat on my hand. It's not. It's everything bad about bread. It is inherently stodgy. It's not toothsome somehow. It's like eating slightly sweet glue that has briefly taken the shape of a bread. It's just, and it falls apart. It rots like immediately. It's just garbage crap bread. I wouldn't give that bread to pigeons because I care about the pigeons.
It's actually probably not healthy for them to eat.
Well,
white
no,
bread.
yeah, exactly. I don't like a white bread. It works. It's not. I would put it at the bottom of D. I don't think it's quite F tier. I'd probably eat it before pumpernickel in most situations. Then again, but man, I'm not buying a white bread if I can help it.
I love white bread. It's so good. It's soft and simple and sweet as hell. It is the very other side of banana bread. It's so sweet. But it just not sweet enough to still qualify as bread. And he's absolutely right, doesn't last long, but that's never a problem for me, because if I get a loaf of white bread, that shit's gone in 2 days anyway. Who cares? Now, here's the thing. I will eat white bread by itself. But I do it in a way that I'm aware is insane. What I do with white bread is I literally grab a slice of white bread, smash it up in my fist until it is a ball, and I eat that. And it's so good. It's just, it's a wonderful little...
Can you imagine, I'm interrupting you here, those of you out there who are still here, can you imagine the people who left missing out on this? What dumb motherfuckers. Please continue.
Compacting becomes toothsome and wonderful, and yes, stodgy, dense as fuck. That's just true. But in its natural state, without me doing that like a crazy person, that and some butter, some white bread and butter. If you toast it, great.
You can put butter on white bread.
It's so good.
No, I don't know how physically, because it clings like a magnet to the butter. And you put on the pat and you start to spread, and what you have is bread with a hole in it and some butter with some bread on your knife.
Well, you don't spread it. You just take a little pat of butter, you put it on the bread, you fold it over you like a sandwich.
It's real bread hours. It's giving bread.
This is the dichotomy of man. I love a good, wonderful French baguette.
I'm gonna put this dumb fucker right. I'm not breadsticks. Better. Sorry. That's the compromise. That's what you're getting. I have the mouse.
Oh, brother, I would put it in B tier by itself. So sure, I'm getting a win here.
Oh, these are two butter breads.
Man, that's Italian bread.
All right. But that's the thing too, is there's two different kinds of Italian bread. You get an Italian bread with a very hard rind, not as hard as a baguette, but a pretty hard rind.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I
know what you mean when you say Italian
Yes.
bread. That's what that is.
Yeah. This butter bread here.
Yep.
Maybe it's just mislabeled or something. I love an Italian bread, a soft Italian bread. I don't mind the other kind either. It's better than a baguette.
For me, it just wants to be a baguette, and it's failing.
Well, and I guess different breads for different Freds.
Yep.
So an Italian bread I find incredibly versatile, doesn't go bad fast. It's everything white bread wishes it was.
Yeah, it's fully just better than white bread. You notice we put like wheat bread and whole wheat bread and all that other stuff up in B tier, and white bread's in C tier. I would put it natively in B, probably below
drop
those
it
others.
to D at least.
I know. I would put both butter breads, just squarely in with those replaceable bread units. White bread, but you've done something with it to make it special.
Yeah, but Italian bread would go right around here, probably above the cake breads. Yeah, butter breads. Who gives a shit? I don't. That doesn't even. This looks like a pumpkin bread, which is delicious. Any other bread facts that we want to drop before piecing out?
I don't think so.
Did you know that bread was invented by Johannes Bread in 1232? He was a monk that studied the art of beer making and fell asleep and fucked up and made bread.
None of that is true.